We have a very dangerous day ahead with a rare high risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center, and that goes into tomorrow with more severe storms. And then the atmosphere likely reloads on Wednesday with another significant severe weather outbreak. And that continues into Thursday. So we have 4 days of severe storms that we got to be concerned about. But first and foremost, here is the significant severe weather threat for today. There it is, issued for this morning's update by the Storm Prediction Center. A rare high risk. The last time one of these was issued was way back on March 31st, 2023. And that day, unfortunately, had 146 confirmed tornadoes. We're in rare territory, folks. And today, I think it all gets going around 4 o'clock this afternoon and goes into the overnight hours. So if you live within the Oklahoma region, up there into southern portions of Kansas, you need to be on high alert. And now is the time to prepare to have your safety plan in place. I do feel further south for those areas into Texas, they're going to be having a strong capping inversion, and that's going to likely limit any activity to overcome that cap and not have much of anything at all. But mostly it's all going to be in Oklahoma, in Kansas with a significant severe weather event. So let's zoom into the details and take a look at the setup for that rare high risk. So if you live, are you listening to me from the Lawton region, back into Norman, into Ada, as well as into the Oklahoma City region, Elk City, Woodward, into Ponca City, back into Bartersville, into Tulsa. All those areas are going to be the highest threat up to Wichita for significant possible tornadoes later on this afternoon into the overnight hours. Some of those could be strong, of those EF2, EF3 type caliber. And unfortunately, the atmosphere is primed for potentially long track tornadoes as well as significant hail up to baseball size and wind gust upwards to 75 miles an hour. So it's definitely going to be a dangerous day ahead. And it is definitely one to prepare for right now. We've got a lot of ingredients likely starting to come together. You see this powerful low-level jet coming in around 4 o'clock. This is your upper level winds here, around 17,000 feet. You can actually see the kind of the ski jump hook shape on this, upper level trough that's going to be diving in. And there you got a very extreme warm sector pulling in those southwest winds. We've got an intense low-level jet, and the significant tornado parameters are pretty much off the chart, folks. You don't really see this too often. Very rare to see. Some of these areas are basically, this chart only goes to 10, and most of these numbers are well above that, especially there in Oklahoma. I think things get going, especially intensifies as we head into that 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock time frame, right when that low level jet kicks in. That is the extra added potency to the storm. That's when we could see some significant tornadoes likely unfold. You see the higher numbers in Texas, but they do have a capping inversion in place. So that should suppress any activity, bringing most of the activity into the Oklahoma region and up here into Kansas as we head into that 4, 5, 6 o'clock time frame. So let's break it down for you as far as the radar depiction goes. You can see where the cold air is. We got a pretty good significant cold shot of May air that is bringing some snow into the higher elevations back into areas of Montana, back through Wyoming, as well as into Colorado here. But there's the low pressure center setting up shop across Nebraska. And you've got that low level jet really digging in, pulling in all that heat that's really building down there into South Texas. And it's all the ingredients are starting to come together. So right around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, this is what the radar could potentially look like with supercell thunderstorms lighting up across the board through Nebraska, as well as into central Kansas there, starting into western Oklahoma. And I think things could continue to intensify as they push eastward. And it's going to be a longer duration event in the evening time frame. I will be live for this event tonight. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to the channel and do like this video and turn on notifications and turn back to live coverage that will start sometime between 4, 5, 6 o'clock tonight that goes into the evening time frame. But that's where we're looking at around 2 o'clock in the morning. So we could be looking at even a more significant squall line pushing through areas of Iowa, back into Missouri, and then finally starting to end up there into eastern Oklahoma. But the damage will likely be done across Kansas as well as into Oklahoma. So you definitely need to prepare now for a significant event unfolding later on this evening. And it's definitely concerning when you start to see some of these helicity index values, these extreme updrafts, and you see the training of these drafts. That implies you could have a supercell thunderstorm starting to originate across this boundary in western Kansas, western Oklahoma, and likely leave a significant hail swath and likely maybe a touchdown a tornado. And some of those could be long track tornadoes, as these tracks kind of look like train tracks. Whenever you see this, that is definitely concerning, that some of these could be some long track tornadoes. So notice there's not much happening in Texas. That's the capping inversion. And really into southern Oklahoma, that's more of a kind of a conditional risk. It's not mean that's completely out of the question, but if it's able to overturn the caps, yes, those could be large cell, supercell thunderstorms. But it's likely going to be in central and northern Oklahoma and up here into Kansas, where they likely get to see the much more significant event unfolding later on this evening into the overnight hours. And as we head into those overnight hours past the midnight time frame, these will be weakening, but some of those still could produce some larger hail, and even into portions of Iowa, back into Missouri, and some stronger wind gust into the overnight hours, or even some northwestern portions of Arkansas. But that just continues into tomorrow. So it's a much weaker setup heading into Tuesday, but we still have some severe storms and some tornadoes possibly to deal with up here into areas of southern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, back into western portions of West Virginia, back through Kentucky, areas into Tennessee, and southern portions of Missouri here. Likely a tornado risk and some damaging winds and some larger hail, but definitely not as significant on what we're going to be seeing today in Oklahoma. But I do feel even on Wednesday, it kind of reloads. So we have a ridge of high pressure that will be building up here from Mexico. That's going to be pumping in all the heat. So a lot of these areas actually could be looking at some record high temperatures potentially, and some higher heat indice values, even likely approaching the 100-degree mark. So for those areas into Florida by Wednesday, could be breaking some records. Areas in South Texas and right along the border, I-10, I-20, I-30 corridor, really activating that heat. And further to the north, we've got the colder shot of air, right? So then we have a little bit more significant low pressure center that will be setting up a shop again across the Ohio Valley. And then we've got the warm sector, kind of the battle zone, if you will, to contend with. And that's where likely we're going to be seeing the severe storms. You can see this on the overall setup on the 500 height anomalies, with the colder pocket of air coming in from the northwest. We've got the warm conditions further south. And then, of course, in the middle, we've got the battle zone. Then that's likely the much more significant severe threat and a much more elevated, if not and another outbreak coming on Wednesday. So it's got a lot of moisture still to contend with. There's that low pressure center traversing up from the north, coming up from the northwest, coming up into Iowa, back into Illinois. And then you got the warm sector, you got the south winds pulling in that Gulf moisture that's feeding this area back into areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. Those areas will likely lead to a much more significant event, because right now we do in fact have an enhanced risk for those areas into Illinois, back into Indiana, as well as into Kentucky, western Tennessee, Missouri, back into Arkansas, and then further south along that cool front, even into portions of northeast Texas by then, with some larger hail and again some tornadic spin-ups. And this could likely be even a much more significant threat, because if we take a look at the combination of the learning guidance, and this kind of hinted at the potential of that moderate risk and possibly even a higher risk that did unfold in Oklahoma today. And look what the trend is trending into Wednesday. Definitely concerning. Even right now, we do have an enhanced risk from the SPC 3 days out. But the guidance is starting to hint at a much more significant event within the purple shaded area, of which higher probabilities this could likely be upgraded to a moderate risk. As it gets closer back into Arkansas as well as into Tennessee, southeastern portions of Missouri, into Illinois, southern portions of Indiana, as well as in Ohio. This could also be another significant tornado outbreak heading into your Wednesday. And I think that's going to be more of a nocturnal threat again into the overnight hours. There's the low pressure. This is highlighted around midnight time frame, with that low really starting to dig in. You got the cool air mass underneath. And so we could be seeing some supercell thunderstorms to originate with that trigger mechanism, with that cool air and that lift again coming in from the west, and all that sets the stage for all three modes of severe storms. And then you got the cooler air coming in on Thursday. So there's the cold front will take its sweet time to move across the country. That's why we're going to have 4 days of severe storms. Unfortunately, got the warm air further to the south. You got the cold air coming from the northwest, diving down to the southeast. And again, that's going to be more of a battle zone, but this time it's going to be further into the east and likely into the eastern seaboard. For those areas into Georgia, back into Arkansas, back into South Carolina, North Carolina, back into Virginia, as well as into Delaware, likely into southern portions of New Jersey. And then their secondary boundary, this would likely be the cool front there in Texas if it does overcome the cap by then, which it probably will, because the cool front will trigger that. Those could be some hail producers and some wind producers likely into that Thursday timeframe. And there's the overall setup on the surface map. You can see it kind of implying as we head into Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, with that additional lift coming in from the northwest, complements of that cool air and that other low pressure center that will be in the area of the Ohio Valley will shifting into the East Coast by then. Yeah, so for those areas into far southeastern portions of the southeast, as well as up the East Coast, we could be looking at some higher wind gust, some larger hail potentially, and it can't roll out an isolated spin up, but definitely the more significant days are Monday and Wednesday, with a much more a lesser grade day as we head into Tuesday and Thursday. But I think once we make it into Friday, things really start to calm down. I don't expect any severe weather for your Friday, as we'll have the cooler air likely in place now all the way down into the south with the cooler May temperatures. And we've got a pretty significant trough that will be diving into the northeast and across the Ohio Valley, dragging in those cooler conditions. So as you wake up on Saturday for your weekend, it's going to feel really nice. It's going to take a lot of the mugginess out of the air. It's going to bring that little bit cooler conditions, and you can see widespread 40s for a good part of the country. 50s sagging south for low temperatures into Oklahoma and a good part of the southeast. So that's not the 60s and 70s and the higher dew points you're contending with right now. So you'll have a lot cleaner air to come, to be enjoying your weekend for. But we got to get through the rough patches between now and then. And even on Sunday, that cooler air really starts to pull further south, going all the way down into the coast. So kind of rare to see a stronger cold front for May standards, at least. But that's going to be wiping the atmosphere clean. And though next week looks a lot calmer for sure with that cooler air coming in, but yeah, it's going to be starting to build back up again into the northwest. So overall, if we break this thing down for you with that significant cold shot of air, it's going to bring in some snow to the higher elevation. So you can't roll out. We got some snow showers to contend with across Idaho, into Montana, back into Wyoming, as well as into western portions of Colorado here, into Nevada, as well as into Utah. So can't roll out some snow flying across that region. And overall, the breakdown as far as the precipitation goes over the next 7 days, notice the dry slot for a good part of the west and much of the southwest, and really for a good part of Texas. Actually, they're going to be dealing with that capping inversion. You just got the triggers coming in. So you got it all originating today across western Oklahoma, western Kansas, and those feed into eastern areas and then really start to activate with more, a lot wider potential unloading across those areas into Indiana, Ohio, back into Kentucky, as well as into Tennessee. Those could be looking at much more significant rainfall and that severe threat that you're likely unfolding on Tuesday, but especially there on Wednesday. And then all that shifts further south on Thursday, and then heading up the coastline on Friday with not a severe threat. And then things really start to clear out, for your weekend. So definitely stay tuned for live coverage, probably starting around 4, 5, or 6 o'clock tonight. Definitely be safe. Now is the time to prepare for this much more significant severe weather outbreak, and catch my next update where I protect you before and after the storm.